Abby and I are in the process of putting all the finishing touches on our full strategic plan, which we're gonna probably be sending around to everyone next week, and we're really excited about it. It's been a long time in the making and a lot of work going into it, but we appreciate everyone. This group especially has given great feedback, and that makes our job a lot easier when we get feedback from you also. We certainly appreciate that. Before we get into that, I was going to do just any general updates from folks. I know Carla had a couple updates on some of the work that VMEC's doing I thought would be relevant. And then I will go through, broadly speaking, what the whole overarching work of the strategic plan is going to look like what the actual document will ultimately be. And then we'll go through the one pager. This is really the time where we can change wording, go through it. If you've been in other committees meetings with me, we basically read through each of the sections and we just make changes on the fly. Obviously, I think we're at the point now where the overall, unless the committee is really upset with the direction, we're not going to change the overall direction of the plan, but now fine tuning it to make sure that it's everything is workable. So with that, I'll just open it up to any updates folks want to share, and I'll start with Carla just because I know you had some updates you wanted to share with everyone.
I did. Let me just share my screen real quick. I think you can see my screen. We had a call to action back in January. Seems like a long time ago. At the end of January, we did that the Vermont Talent Pipeline Management event, and 3 call to actions came. One was to tell your story, tell our story, and making sure that the diverse pathways of manufacturing are known and inspiring. So we can do that every single day. The other is to leverage resources like we were just doing at the very beginning of this call. We have an opportunity to do that every day as well. And then to take steps together. I've been trying to keep it simple. And a step might be assemble to realize some solution, right? So each one of us can tell a story every day. We are creating this idea of why is it, can we all speak kind of the same language and start understanding what this is? And obviously the rebranding will be important for the work of this committee. But this idea of showing what, there's so many different aspects of manufacturing. Can we show that? And just thinking through some of the stuff here. Oops. So again, I'm encouraging folks to, every chance I get is to tell the story in a way that's inspiring, because what we say every day is probably the most important thing. And then of course there's things we need to do. Second one is leveraging resources. So that's, manufacturers and partners. An example, just wanted to let you know that came out of that event was really a connection, real important connection between the CTEs, the career technical education entities. And so we've moved that forward with great velocity, trying to get some advisory boards assignments on the CTEs. And we are going to be, along with, I think, Abby and Tori, engaged in this summer conference. We're going to be doing some professional development for the CTEs, talking through them about equipment sharing, instructor sharing, space sharing, materials kind of cycling, right? And then working with them with this, certificates of value or industry recognized credentials or curriculum. And then creating some summits. So things like events that bring manufacturers into the CTEs and so forth. And this is really to kind of open up some of those pathways for the community, right? The benefit of the whole community. And that's just an example. We're doing things obviously with the Advanced Manufacturing Center. I say we, the manufacturing community is, and so many other like CCV and so forth. So let's keep that going. And I'm just going to take one more thing is about the steps that we can take together around onboarding and upskilling. So in Vermont Talent Pipeline Talent Pipeline Management, we see this whole like value stream, if you will, value chain of from awareness all the way to upskilling and retention. So 2 specific things we're taking steps on are around onboarding, creating awareness of, how good is an onboarding process, and are people aware of your company's culture and things like that, and then getting down to brass tacks around training and development, engaging in performance, and then what resources do we need, and do they come in lots of forms. So we're moving forward. Vermont Cheese Council has a mini-versity that we're doing a few sessions. VMEC is doing a few sessions, but again, being aware, it's supposed to be the Cheese Council, but it's all food producers. So any food producer is encouraged to sign up for that mini-versity, and it's going to be remote. So things like that, just going ahead and taking these steps together toward improving the flow. That's my update.
Great, thank you. Any other updates from folks?
Or comments or questions too, I suppose.
Yeah, do you mind if I ask a question? Okay, so with regards to the last piece there, and when you're working with companies or businesses across the state around their onboarding processes and then upskilling, and then it sounds like you're trying to find are you looking for the gaps as to like what training and development needs to be for future employees to actually succeed in their job and within that organization?
Yeah, so that's a really great one. Is like the current need, like that tactical block and tackle, get them onboarding, and absolutely what you said, which is can you envision who is going? Are they going to upskill? Are they going to come in from other place? Are they going to come from another company, right? And how comfortable are we in a community to allow that to happen in a intentional way, right?
Okay.
So I think, sorry, not to cut you off, but to piggyback on that, what Vermont Talent Pipeline Management, and maybe at our next meeting, we'll have Carla and Marian Sheehan do like a presentation on what that work is and where the committee functions. But I think the gist of it is essentially what they do, and it is very impressive in my perspective, is understanding the entry points into the manufacturing, they do it for other sectors, but manufacturing sector, understanding what training is relevant to those employers, what's needed, what credentials are stackable, and how like your career can progress. And so you understand where that pipeline is, where the the points are. So I think it would be useful, because what we did with and bring it back to our one pager is basically we're working as a committee to kind of assist and make that work as effective as possible and not duplicate those efforts. So I think it would be great for you as well and folks at the generator to get involved and understand that as well, just because of kind of some of the programming that you offer and the stuff that you offer. You could fill some gaps too, if there are any. So I think maybe we'll try to set that up, Carla, if you are comfortable with that for our next committee meeting, because it'll be a good way to kick off some of this work that we're doing.
No problem. And also, Veronica, feel free to contact me before then.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Tori, you read my mind, so thank you.
Yes, I like in my head, it's funny because when Abby and I went to it was at the Vermont State or Technical College in January, I think, and Abby and I went, and it was like immediately my mind is always thinking like who needs to connect to who, and I thought about Generator as well and some of the stuff that you're doing, because I know when we went and visited, Meg was like, we want to know what we can help with and what we can do. So I think there's a lot. That's one of the reasons why I think we added Carla to this committee as well, is because there's a really good nexus between the work that they're doing and you all with your finger on the pulse of different entities and making sure that we can fill some of those gaps, and it can all work together.
Great.
Great. Any other updates, questions before I move on to the one pager? Okay, great. Thank you, Carla. I appreciate that. I'm going to share my screen. Carla, can you unshare? It won't let me while you're sharing as well. There we go. Great. Thank you. So to kick this off, as you all know, your one pager is a part of a large strategic plan for the board and to give everyone background and updates on kind of why we came to this. And I apologize if you've been in other meetings and have heard this spiel before, but the board is obviously a very large entity, and the feedback we've received in the past is we have all of these people with their finger on the pulse in either their community, their sector, or their area of workforce development, but our efforts are not well coordinated and we're not really actually making any progress as a board. And so the point of the strategic plan is so that we can actually move the needle on some of these key areas and get the right people in the room to do some of this work. And so Abby and I have set out to do this strategic plan on a very ambitious timeline. Even with me leaving for 6 months to run a campaign, we've persevered through this. And the final product ultimately will be all of us working in tandem on our piece of the strategic plan so that we can all come together and make progress, make recommendations to the legislature, make recommendations to the governor, and start to make some of this meaningful progress and connection that people have been asking for a very long time. And so the full strategic plan will start off with an executive summary, pretty standard, a letter from the governor. We will set up some of the data behind what is driving our focus. There's a couple numbers from Vermont Futures Project that dictates kind of, this is where we're headed as a state. And then we talk about our priority areas, which is utilizing the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act funding better, supporting our existing workforce, promoting and increasing education and training, and increasing the size and quality of our workforce. And I'm missing one now, I think, Abby. I just put you on the spot. Maybe I'm not, but regardless, there's 4, I think, 4 or 5 clear overarching principles that dictate our strategic plan. And then each of the committees have their own charge as it relates to the plan that they give recommendations to the board. All of this is for the board will serve 2 purposes, either system improvement and making recommendations to agencies and departments on how they can do things better, coordinating services better so that they're actually all working together, or 3, making, where necessary, making recommendations to the governor on policy and budget items that are needed to advance our shared goals as board. So that's kind of where it all fits in. By Monday, we will be sharing the first official draft of the whole strategic plan with everyone. And we'll be inviting feedback. The operating committee will be voting on that in a couple of weeks, and then we'll have the full board meeting in the end of May. So our goal is really that once this stuff is approved, we have our meeting on May 26th. It's Memorial Day weekend. So on that Tuesday after is when all of this work begins. And we're very excited to get to work. So I'll pause for any questions, and then I'm going to share my screen and we can start going through our piece of this.
Just it might be premature, and obviously can't wait to see it. What else can we do once you're starting to present it? What else can we do to increase either support or awareness for the plan? I mean, ultimately it needs support from the general public. It needs support from other sort of manufacturers and local areas around the state. So is there anything else that we can do to support that or grow it?
Well, you are almost more forward thinking than I have. I haven't thought that far ahead. I think in terms of board support, we're very comfortable with that, and legislative and inside state government support, I think we feel very comfortable. I think in terms of one of the big pieces that we'll be doing, and this is not a part of the manufacturing committee, but when we share the full plan, you'll see this piece of it is a lot of regional engagement from the board as a whole. We'll be inviting committee members, we'll be inviting board members to basically do more regional engagement and hear from businesses, stakeholders directly. And that will be where a lot of the public work happens, because what we want to be able to do is tap into everyone's sphere of influence and take that information from the public and translate it directly into the work that we're doing in the board. And so any and all participation, I know this is not anyone's job, but any and all participation in those regional events would be really helpful. If you have people that are upset about something or need assistance with workforce, either, directing them to us, directing them to, talk about the plan or how it's working, that as well would be very helpful. But I think the biggest thing will be as we start to do more work in the communities, any and all participation will be welcome and helpful.
Great. And actually, just offering up my services. I work a lot out of state now as well. So if there's anything specific that's happening regionally, I know we're trying to encourage people from out of state to come in as well, or businesses, etc.
Yeah, steal any workers from out of state you can, snatch them up and bring them here legally,
No,
obviously.
I didn't hear that.
Yes. Well, I mean, and there's going to be a big there's a lot of work that needs to be done. This is not related necessarily to the committee's work, but one of the allocations I believe that the Senate has approved that we put forward this year was a dual effort marketing plan that does micro targeting for specific industries or specific types of people out of state, but then also allows us to finally fund some of these regional entities that are doing a lot of this relocation work themselves that are currently just doing it without any funding. And that's through tourism and marketing. Obviously, we'll see if that ultimately gets through in the budget, but that work will be crucial in making sure that we're engaged and understanding that they are connected with employers, they are resourced. Like, we'll need to do some hand holding there as well. Because that would be really exciting if that goes through. But I believe it's about $1 million to do some really sophisticated marketing work, which, as you know, in marketing, $1 million is not even really that much. But if you've seen what the folks at the marketing team have done, they're pretty effective at targeting it very directly. So some of that work and some of that those regional efforts will be key, because, as you know, recruiting to Burlington is very different than recruiting to Bennington and Manchester and Southern Vermont and Addison County. Like, they're all very different. So some of that work is exciting. Any other thoughts or questions before I share my screen?
No, but I do echo what Danielle says in terms of like us having a clear, what will we do? Like we want, we're here for a reason.
Yeah.
That's part of my
And I
questions
think,
to
yeah.
Abby.
And I think the biggest thing too is, like, if we can, Abby and I have had the mentality that we're trying to let the work product prove itself. There's a lot of, for those of you who are new to the board, there's a lot of skepticism about the workforce board and its role. And we are very focused on just putting our nose to the ground and getting the work done. So I think that's ultimately what we can do. If we can do, especially with this committee, I think there's an opportunity here, using the talent pipeline model and then using our work to kind of talk about like a sales funnel into that model. If we can do that effectively in manufacturing, we can translate that into other industries as well. And so I think there's a lot of actual work product that I think could be useful here. So with that, I will share my screen. Great. Okay, so I'll start reading through. You feel free to stop me and we can make changes as we go on wording, etc. I have like an issue with capitalizing things randomly, as Abby knows. So if there's a capital letter in there you find, then feel free to let me know. So Vermont has a long, proud history of makers, craftspeople, and innovators. Today, manufacturing takes place across all corners of the state and in products and industries as diverse as food, wood, metal, semiconductors, non-metal precision machining, chemical and bioscience, engineering services, and beverages. While technological changes and offshoring have impacted our state exports in recent years, manufacturing is seeing a resurgence. The sector currently makes up 9.5% of all Vermont jobs, representing billions of dollars to our state GDP. Every $1 in manufactured goods generates an estimated $2.779 worth in additional economic activity, 3.6 if you include the supply chain. Vermont is not unique in its immediate and long-term need to fill key manufacturing jobs. Forecasts indicate the growth of the sector is outpacing our available labor force. To support businesses and communities as we grow, it's crucial we fill jobs, increase capability and adaptability of our workforce, build a sustainable pipeline of workers from all career stages, work with the Career Pathways Committee to assess future demand for manufacturing jobs based on employer projected innovations. And I'll pause there before we move on to the solution.
I can't tell. This is very minor, just font size. I don't know if that changes from I don't know if that's like how granular getting into it, unless it's just
No,
my
yeah, we
when
can.
I'm seeing on there.
Which is it different?
Like I don't know if it looks like from the beginning and then at the end. Like I don't know if it's smaller from
Okay.
the final two lines. Just
I will have Abby format that correctly afterwards. If I touch the formatting, she will kill me. So I will have her.
yeah.
Go,
I could be wrong.
go
It could be
ahead. Go ahead, Barry.
It's funny, I've read this a bunch of times and I never realized until you read it out loud, the specific industries called out. Granite is a really important, valuable industry to Vermont, and I noticed it's not really recognized there. So a recommendation may be to acknowledge the granite industry as well.
And then I'll put in and more for anyone we missed.
Yeah, and to Barry's point, if you wanted to switch out one of those for and granite and then and more, that would be fine.
Yeah,
We might want to talk about which one that we switch out, but
I'll just add granite and we can do and more. I think that'll work. Other thoughts or feedback? And yes, Veronica, we will change the font size. Abby and I, the way that we do this, it's like we use SharePoint, which is not as easy as using Google Docs. And I go in there and I like add all this content and then I change the formatting and Abby goes in and she's like, this is like a literal disaster. And so now I just have her do it all for me because I get nervous. I'm going to mess it all up. So, but yes, any other feedback for the situation?
I think that the granite is one of the stones, but there's a lot of other. We also have marble, slate, and like omia. And so I don't know if we can make that a little more general with minerals or rocks or.
Is it
I
like,
don't know what the
what's
category
the
would be.
term, like stonework, or?
Is this masonry or is this beyond or separate from masonry?
I like stone. I think, yeah, it's a great point. So maybe as you're just capturing things, it could go after, where'd you go? As diverse as food, wood, metal, stone, on after
Okay.
that.
Yeah. Works.
So I have a question about that last bullet point, which is work with Career Pathways Committee to assess future demand for, I don't know what committee that is referencing. So as a situation, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so
understand.
that's kind of like a full board context. So the board is statutorily mandated to have a career pathways committee. And the purpose of the career pathways committee is basically to approve like official career pathways. There's a process behind all of that. I can send you information on what basically like their one pager and what they do if you'd like it. But their job is essentially to look at future demand, understand what career pathways. So like, for example, Vermont Talent Pipeline, when you get through kind of like your pipeline management, if you wanted to say, we want to have an official career pathway as like through the career pathways committee, which just opens you up to sometimes more funding, different things, because it's like through some of the federal statutes. That's kind of where that comes from. And so that's who we would work with if their role in all of this is looking at the state and future demand and determining where there's need for improvement.
So that is an entity. So I am not one to format, but if it's an entity that is recognized, you might want to capitalize it in that case.
Happy to add a capital letter
If that
ananywhere.
if it's like a thing versus like a
yes,
proper
it
noun.
is. It's
Okay.
a piece of the state workforce board.
Yes, that makes more sense to me. Thank you.
Yes.
And that'll be included in the full strategic plan, so you'll have more of that context when you have the entire thing.
Yes. Ashley and Barry.
I think Barry had his hand up first. So
Wait,
he
go
should
ahead,
have. I was just gonna say the industries and products that were listed, did that come from data, or is this just us collaborating, saying different, listing off industries?
Listing different industries.
It may be best, and just my opinion, like the maybe the top 5 manufacturing industries in Vermont to list those off instead of us trying to be like, well, what about this one? What about this one? And then using the N more.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is that we're not gonna limit any of this work to one particular or another. I think our purpose in putting that in there is to make the point that manufacturing has a broad reach in the state, more than just like the traditional manufacturing jobs.
Yep.
But we could certainly reorder so that it's like the top 5. And I don't know if that's data you all have at
It's
DD
not,
that we could
I didn't
use.
mean necessarily like ranking or hierarchy, just if choosing, because it seems like, you know, one person, if we're like, well, what about this one? What about this one to list? And then we're adding the N more instead of, you know, just having, I don't know, just a solution to figuring out which couple to list. That data
Okay.
could come from UVM.
Okay.
I forgot her name, but she works with the Futures Project. I
Oh,
can
okay.
look her name up and I can ask her specifically for that data.
Okay.
Just on the counter to that, I don't mind. I don't really have a problem sort of listing a few of them. I mean, I think it didn't really seem like a problem the last sort of few drafts of it, so it doesn't really bother me having a bunch there. And we're never going to get them all in, so, and more seems to cover it pretty much.
Yeah, although Ashley, I feel like that data might be useful for us in general. So if you wanted to follow up with her and
Yeah, and
ask.
it's also not going to be extremely accurate because it's going to be by NAICS and it can go down to the 6-digit NAICS, but we're a rural state and
Yes.
people don't list their NAICS codes correctly, and we have
Yes.
tiny machine shops.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know if it's relevant or where, but just
Okay.
some, it was just a thought because, you know, people are like, well, what about this metal, oh, this rock, and
Yeah. Yeah.
so forth. The other thought was just, I don't know if it's appropriate in this section, and I can look through it again, but some 3% of the GDP is related to defense contracts, and I'm not sure how if that's that relevant in this section, but just something to keep in mind, especially with the funding coming down from the DoD and
Yeah.
all of the initiatives to strengthen the U.S. supply chain, and a lot of that money is coming from the DoD.
Yeah. And I think, you know, as we're looking, especially at future demand, and I'm sure you all are looking at this, like the aerospace corridor in Vermont is growing, and that's great. And there is a lot of defense interest, especially with, you know, Beta and some other folks. So I think as we're looking at future demand and we're determining either future pipelines or we're working with future, we need to keep that in mind as a sector that is a huge portion of some of our manufacturing jobs.
The other thing to keep in mind that defense doesn't just necessarily mean like ammunitions and
Yes.
aerospace. One of our biggest defense contractors in the state is like Vermont Woodworking Furniture or Fine Furniture. I can't remember the exact name, but they
Yes.
make the like bunk beds, and like not just for the DoD, but for universities and colleges, and just I have to add my little DoD slip in. Sorry about that.
Of course, not a problem. Barry?
I'm thinking, just an opinion, it would be good to add in that in the bullets that need to target folks that grow diversity and help out folks that are traditionally marginalized. In my experience, the pipeline that we even have now is very stereotypical, and we cannot be successful if we can't reach out and figure out the support services to help folks that have been traditionally challenged to be able to come into this sector.
Yes. Okay, so we could change this to build like a more diverse and sustainable pipeline. Would that
And I
work?
think, and I think
Exactly.
again, I think again with that that context story, which I think this is an error on our part for not sending out this entire strategic plan before this meeting, but we do have multiple sections in other parts of the plan that address that. So I think there's probably value in mentioning it here, but just knowing that there fully are large portions of the plan that are dedicated to that.
Proposal would be, added in the section about where it says build a sustainable pipeline of workers. Build a sustainable and more diverse pipeline of workers from all career stages and, whatever diverse backgrounds. Something just to acknowledge that if that is not a called out effort, or an intentional effort, and it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Okay. I added that, and then yes, you'll see that that actually is good feedback because then it'll tie nicely into the sections we have on increasing workforce diversity. So I added that, and yes, it looks badly formatted, but again, I will have Abby reformat this afterwards with the innovations matching the solutions. But I think that makes sense, especially as we talk about marketing collateral as well. Abby and I always use the example of sometimes there are folks who we went to an event where, we see two burly white men with a old time saw working on something in their marketing collateral. We're not going to use, that's not going to recruit more women and diverse populations in. So I think it's relevant to the work that we're doing in terms of getting more people into the industry.
Agreed. I'm not sure if anyone else here got to go to the talk at Hulu a few weeks ago about helping folks with autism into the workplace. They had some fantastic case studies where if you change your work setting, you can have a tremendous amount of value from folks that now are, very underemployed or non-employed.
Yeah.
So yeah, just thinking differently about the business model setup and the diversity there.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
Think about CNC for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Other thoughts on the solution? I think I incorporated everyone's edits, but let me know if I missed something there. Okay. All right, so we'll move on to the solution. To address the manufacturing workforce shortage, the SWDB's manufacturing committee must assist in the work of the Vermont Manufacturing Extension Center, Vermont Talent Pipeline Management to develop effective and accessible flow of competency to Vermont's jobs and careers in manufacturing. In addition to these efforts, the committee must look forward and rebrand manufacturing for future generations. This will occur through a strategic marketing campaign which promotes trades work to younger and disengaged generations as an exciting and high-value career opportunity for individuals from diverse backgrounds, disciplines, and experiences. The committee will evaluate success based on a number of individuals who transition from awareness of available opportunities to employment at Vermont manufacturing businesses. Thoughts or feedback there?
Just have a question, and maybe it's not yet, but it's coming, but we have, or the State Workforce Development Board has the means to track that data, right?
Yes, so
Okay.
we will be talking about that, but yes, we will, it'll be not perfect. But what we will be able to do is if they're going through folks who are one-stop partners, which majority of our training providers are funded or are able to receive funding through One Stop or WIOA or state. If they're able to receive any state or federal funding, we're able to track it. Now, there will be people, I'm sure, that fall through the cracks there, but if we can at least start to get a baseline, I feel like that'll be helpful.
Awesome. Okay.
Barry's out of hand.
Super quick. Well, this is actually a placeholder. So really clearly you say here that in the solution, it's the awareness to employment. And what I see through the rest is just, there's nothing, it talks a lot about later on doing the awareness and the start of the funnel. It's just not clear to me if any of those bullets discreetly then go from, okay, now somebody's aware, what's next? It's a lot of the metrics around, did we reach people? Did we host events? Did we do this? If you really are saying the solution and that we potentially own or have to make sure somebody else is doing, if we're going from awareness all the way through employment, then what happens in the handoff in the sales funnel when somebody goes, hey, I'm kind of interested, where does that transition to whatever it is, CTE, VTMC, VTC, community college?
Yeah, so what we determined when we were writing this was that we would have that in the no more than 5 success metrics to track on the campaign. And what we determined for success metrics would not be the actual awareness building, that would be through this. But in our success metrics, maybe we determine quarter 2 and quarter 4 employment as the success metrics we're tracking, or we want to track wage growth, or we want to track, like, that's where that would come in. And then what the committee would do is basically evaluate the effectiveness of the work that we're doing based on those strategies. And so I think what the other piece is that maybe we redo a little bit the one that we talk about, like top stakeholders for promotional material and distribution, where we add in something to the effect of, like, you know, if we need to either create connections or do something that's going to cause, like, to facilitate that type of either data sharing or that type of work, we add that into the as a part of the plan. But I from my perspective, we were going to have this whole plan start to finish is not just about the awareness. It would be translate the success we're tracking and the strategies we're using are getting someone from awareness all the way into ultimately employment or whatever other metric we're trying to track there.
Totally agree. And what I would reflect as a third-party reader, it's clear to me there a couple of the bullets are action and a couple of the bullets are measurement. To me, the action bullets say are very clear around the building the awareness campaign. What I don't see action bullets around is, okay, what are you doing to get somebody in school? Once they're in school, how do they get to the workplace? All of those pieces. And maybe that's the placeholder for the future to define those activities based on how the awareness campaign goes. But just pure observation, scope on the left under the solution, that idea all the way through, or awareness all the way through employment. I didn't see action bullets that said, here's those 4 phases and what we're doing in each.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Barry, can I add something around explorate? Because we think about awareness, and there's exploration, right? And then there's skilling, if you will, if that's a word. So that idea that you're exploring, you got awareness, you're then exploring your engagement with that potential career path, then you're actually setting about that at action, right? So, and then I think in the flow, it just reminds me of the flow there of exploration and then preparation and then onboarding.
So I'm wondering oh, go ahead, Barry.
I was gonna say, I get to visit with those learners every day. And I think the big pieces that are missing, I mean, what's captured here is somebody on a traditional, potentially high school, college track where there's not the other million life things that are the barriers. And nowhere in here the reflection of, okay, if once the person goes, okay, I'm interested, well, how do you overcome childcare, transportation? I can't speak English. I don't have time to go do this. All of those pieces. And that's what I was meaning in the activities. We're going to hit this place where people become aware, and we'll say, check, we have the awareness campaign. But I just didn't see an activity that was something around building that strategic network of United Ways and building bridges and all those others that helps somebody go from idea to I can go do it.
So I think the biggest piece where this connects is through, and again, like I hate to keep harping on this section, is when you start to look at the one-stop system through the strategic plan, that's where a lot of that work happens. So let's say we get someone into that. That's where then we have SNAP, TANF, all of the, RDCs, all of the different that are like, then can workshop on one individual's barriers in terms of that. But what I think we could do as a committee is either add somewhere as a bullet or, as a long-term strategy is basically, we look at how we're doing it in terms of getting people through, from awareness to it, like let's say employment, right? How we're doing it on someone on a traditional track, but then we can determine maybe on a yearly basis, we make some recommendations on where this is falling through, right? Or where we're falling short in some of these areas or these connections aren't happening. And that's the stuff that comes to the full board that they can then make either it's at the agency level and we can just make changes through rules, or we need legislation to make those changes. So I think we could maybe add in here a bullet that's basically like every year, after July 24th, whatever we launch campaign, every year thereafter, we'll assess the metrics, based on the metrics, make recommendations to the full board on, my wording is leaving me right now, but you understand the intent there is basically the, on how to better connect all folks from different backgrounds into the industry, into employment. Daniel?
Thanks. Forgive me if I'm missing, Barry, if I'm missing your point a little bit. The bullet points are just the timeline, the short to medium term timeline, correct? So the long-term action, the committee will establish the continuously improve the manufacturing worker pipeline that begins in elementary school and extends through an individual's lifetime. I think that encapsulates really what we're trying to do all the way through the career to the, till somebody's, I guess, retirement. I remember it was at the last meeting or the meeting before, we spent a bit of time discussing how we were going to define or how we were going to articulate supporting and working with people all the way through their manufacturing career, not just sort of leaving it at okay, they're recruited, we're gone. And that's the verbiage we put in there for that. I guess the bullet points, as I said, just state the timeline up to September 2024, and I guess it doesn't hurt to put something in there after that for a longer term goal. But I think the strategic plan is the place where you would have and articulate all the detail of what we will be doing once people are in post, how we touch base, how we measure the metrics, what metrics are we measuring. Can everybody sort of comment on that? Did I understand that correctly, or am I mistaken?
No, I think you understand that correctly, and others can weigh in. And I think the other piece that I will remind folks too is that it's hard even for us myopically when Abby and I are going through these committee things to not think about everything. But one of the biggest issues folks have with the workforce system right now is there's so many different moving pieces and parts that all need to be connected. And so this is our piece of the pie, but I think as you see, and we will be taking all feedback on the full strategic plan, you'll see how as a board, we weave all of these different pieces together. So when we're talking about some of the things like Barry's talking about, which is like barriers to the workforce, or the actual customer service piece of getting someone into some of these jobs, it flows through some of our other priority areas. And so I think it is useful for us to call that out in this one pager, that that's a piece of our strategy, but also for everyone to remember in context that, Abby and I are kind of acting at like the 50,000 foot view, like pulling something from here and connecting it here and making sure that these things are all working simultaneously to deliver the best results for everyone. Just an easy, simple job of fixing the workforce crisis, as you all know. But what I can do is we can wordsmith a little bit and send it around via email. But I think in terms of, I think it makes sense to add a bullet point there to my point of just saying, we'll review. The other piece I wanted to mention is that we are going to be voting to update our bylaws so that every year we are able to just take a look at our one pagers, take a look at the full strategic plan, and make sure we don't need to change goals or reword anything to make it fit our, if we're behind schedule, if we're ahead of schedule, fit what we're actually doing, and then every 3 years be able to change our focus if we'd like to. So that's something to just keep in mind as well, that if we're going through this and it's like, this is really wasting our time or it's not working, next year around the same time, around May, we'll be able to be like, okay, we need to change a couple of these milestones so that it's working better for us. Sound good? Other thoughts or feedback? I can start going through the milestones. Okay. So milestone 1, the committee will support VTPM employer-led regional work groups via advising, administrative support, and promotion of work, and limited financial support as the pipeline management process continues. As you all know, VMEC and VTPM are doing this work as we speak to kind of create this pipeline. And so as needed, the committee will assist in promotion or whatever they need to make that work happen. By October of 2023, the committee will host an annual event in coordination with VMEC for Manufacturing Month that highlights innovative work in Vermont's manufacturing sector. This was feedback we received at the last meeting that Abby and I liked, and I think it'd be a good way for us to kick off the work of this committee as we're starting this process, is to host a big event to talk about, or small events, whatever, in coordination in Manufacturing Month, which I'm certain the governor will proclaim this year. By July of 2023, the committee will define the 3 core principles of their manufacturing rebranding plan and sub-plans for targeted age demographics and regions of the state. So just the overarching 3 core principles. By December of 2023, the committee will define a list of no more than 5 success metrics to track during the campaign. This is what I was talking about earlier. By December of 2023, the committee will meet with ACCD to develop promotional materials, messaging, and a sales funnel for the campaign. By March of 2024, the committee will identify top stakeholders for promotional materials, distribution, and top distribution strategies. By July of 2024, the committee will launch promotional campaign. By September of 2024, the committee will host no less than 3 events for various affinity groups, students, veterans, disengaged populations, etc. And I will add in with a placeholder for everyone, the bullet point that we talked about with Barry to assess yearly where the either pipeline or the connections are falling short and make recommendations on changes. Thoughts or feedback from the group on the one pager?
This is just a little bit maybe too granular, but for a follow-up perhaps with for Tori, but with Generator, we've helped to sponsor the Advanced Manufacturing Day that was happening in Central Vermont. And so for in October, we're also looking to host one up in the Burlington area. And so I think that can also support the that second bullet. I don't know what the approach is going to be with regards to the age group, but at least that can definitely speak to high school students enrolled in CTE centers, high school completion program. Yeah.
Great.
And to that point, I'm just wondering if we want to, I'm thinking that in some ways this is, I think about being more aggressive with schedule. So this is very off brand for Carla, but the last bullet is by September 2024. I'm wondering if we want to, since October is manufacturing month, if we want to hit that again in October.
Yeah, do that.
I mean, I don't want to be less aggressive, but I think that if we do it before October, then we can do another event in October. That's fine.
Right.
That's just bonus.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Abby and I like not arbitrarily, but based on just like general workflow, pick these dates. So it's not like we didn't have something special for September that was planned in October. Or in September. So October is fine.
And again, it's so we can beat these dates in other words,
yes,
for some of the other
yes.
dates. Okay.
And again, if we are somehow like, we could be, if this committee is high functioning and we're moving fast, we could beat all of these dates. We just wanted to give kind of like a realistic time frame on getting some of this work done and recognize that all of you again have day jobs and this is not your only focus. So we will send this around with the updated bullet point based on Barry's feedback, but with the caveat and general understanding of what the intent of his bullet point would be. We do have a quorum today. Would you all be willing to take a vote to move this to the operating committee? Great. So I will call for have someone make a motion to vote on the strategic plan.
Motion to approve. Well, we haven't seen the strategic plan yet, have we?
Oh, the one pager.
Motion to approve the one pager as pending the amendments that we just made at this meeting.
Anyone second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Any opposed? Abby, because of formatting, maybe?
Hey, I was just trying to look for something to volunteer,
Great. All right. Well, we will send this around with the amended version, and it will go in front of the operating committee. And next week, keep your eyes peeled for the full strategic plan. It is, I'm sure, quite the page turner, but there will be specific we'll try to keep it as organized as possible for you to see sections that you feel like are relevant. Our intent for this is that it's not some giant plan that stays on a shelf. It's really used as a guiding document for the work that we're doing so that you can hold us as staff accountable and the board accountable as well. So Carla?
I'm so sorry. I do not see what Daniel said really importantly on that arrow. If we don't have continuous improvement on there at the top of the arrow, I think we've missed something all the way at the top. There we go. It says metrics tracking. Sorry,
Okay.
but Daniel said it so well, I want to catch it. Thank you.
Great.
I just want to track.
Just another quick question. Thank you very much, Carla, for that. That was great. Just another quick question. The strategic plan, are they all the different committees have their own individual strategic plans? Is there going to be one finally after everything? Is there going to be like one master document where all the committees were, together?
Yeah, so that's what we'll be sending around is all of it, the whole board with all the committee strategic plans. Yeah. Almost everyone, I believe, is voting on theirs this week or next week, the committees.
And that's next week, is it? You're going to send that around?
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yes. Great. All right. Well, thank you all so much for your feedback and help. And we're excited to get to work with you all.
I have one quick last question. For Abby, what picture was behind you on the wall?
Abby is so we share an office because they gave us this big office, and Abby was supposed to be, the only other place that she could go was this closet. And so I said, let's just share an office. We don't need her to be in a closet. But when we take meetings together, she goes into this other little office that's like it's got like a giant nutcracker in it for Christmas. It's got all the broken furniture, and she just takes the meetings from that office. The very glamorous life of the governor's office, as you can see. It's also acting as our kitchen as they're redoing the break room kitchen right now. So that's why she has a blank wall, but she usually has her diplomas and like a picture of the State House behind her.
But it looks like one of the teams.
It's an ominous hook that's just waiting for something to hang on there. So
yes. Exactly. Yes, we're really very glamorous here at the governor's. It's really what everyone thinks it's like the West Wing. It's really just special. Great. All right, well, have a good one, guys.
Thank you, guys. Cheerio.